The Earley Show will begin after a brief word from today's sponsor, Answering Legal. Visit answeringlegal.com to learn more about our 24/7 virtual receptionist team.
Answering Legal has helped us set boundaries and be able to establish a better work-life balance in the information that they collect. Knowing that Answering Legal is handling all the calls that are coming in has really helped reduce stress that I feel outside of work. So I know that the calls are being answered. I know we have the information we need to prioritize these calls, and I'm able to enjoy time with my family. I would absolutely recommend Answering Legal to other attorneys. It really helps with the work-life balance.
Hi everyone, it's Chris. Welcome to another episode of the Earley Show podcast, sponsored by our friends over at Answering Legal. As always, we have a real treat for you. Today we have two special guests. We have Cassidy Lewis, we have Jim Hurley from Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers out of Virginia. I have a ton of respect for these two. That's why I asked them to come on the show. They're doing big things down in Virginia, and we're going to learn a lot from them today. So as always, sharpen those pencils. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of writer downers during today's episode. So guys, thank you so much and welcome to the show.
Chris, I'm really excited to be here and thank you so much for having us.
It's my pleasure. You, Chris. Thank you both. Thank you both. So you guys speak my language. You guys speak the language of building up a law firm, scaling a law firm, marketing a law firm. And so I'm really excited to geek out with you guys. And I know our listeners are going to get a ton from our conversation. So Jim, if we could just start with you, if you could just share a little bit about, I always like to start from the start. If you could just share where you grew up, what was it like, you know, mom and dad, how did they impact you looking back, right? Growing up, because I feel like we're really imprinted at those early years with a lot. So just take us through the beginning of growing up. I believe you're from Buffalo, right, originally?
Correct. So I was born and raised in Buffalo, New York, and I spent 18 years there. So that means I spent 18 winters in Buffalo, New York, with vast amounts of snow, the blizzard of 1979, blizzard of 1977. Each and every year we have blizzards. We just name them different names.
Let me ask you, how'd you end up in Virginia?
I ended up in Virginia, and this is the tale that happens to many men because my wife is from Virginia.
Okay.
So once we got married, that the choices to go were Virginia and Virginia and Virginia.
Same here. Same here. So I relate to that. Awesome. Thank you. Cassidy, how about you? Tell us, where'd you grow up? What was it like growing up? Bring us back.
Yeah, sure. So I am from Virginia Beach, Virginia. I moved around a little bit, did Ohio, did Elizabeth City, North Carolina. That's where I went to school. Stayed there. And then, unfortunately, my husband is he's from Buffalo, actually, but by way of Charlotte. So he was living in Charlotte, but we ended up coming to Virginia, too, after we got married. So it's the same story for you, too.
Yeah, we're all in the same boat. I love it. So how did the firm, come about? Because, Jim, you guys didn't just, you guys have a big firm. This didn't come out of nowhere. You guys started this probably from humble beginnings, I would imagine, right? How did the firm originally start? Would you take us back to the beginning of the firm?
Sure. I started out at Legal Aid, so it was a very humble beginning in many ways. And I earned less salary than my wife did, who is a school teacher. She's retired now. So I worked at Legal Aid for about 2 years, and then I started working for a relatively large personal injury law firm here in the Virginia area. So that's where I figured out how to try cases, how to litigate cases, how to do personal injury. And then after about 10 years at that firm, I was a partner at the time. But like many lawyers, we all think we're unbelievably smart. So I decided that I should leave because I could do it better on my own and I could figure out how to build a better mousetrap. Little did I know when I did that in 2002 how hard the journey would be and how long the journey would take. So I joined a small firm of 2 other lawyers for a few years while I built up my personal injury practice. And then in 2006, started Hurley Law Firm, thinking that this is going to be unbelievably easy. I'm a good lawyer. I've tried lots of cases. And that's really when my journey started on, oh my Lord, I have to run a business. I have to be an entrepreneur. I have to meet payroll. That was really a rude awakening to me. And then in 2011 is when our current law firm started, Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers. And John Cooper and myself, the named partners, embarked on that journey in 2011. And I knew something about the business aspect of law at that point and the marketing aspect of law at that point. But that's really where the journey truly began to build the firm where it is today. And then Cassie joined us on December 1st, 2017. If I'm not mistaken, I don't want to get the date wrong. So that's truly when the firm changed dramatically because of Cassie's expertise.
I believe it. She knows what she's doing. So if I could just go back, because the beginning really fascinates me of a law firm that's grown to your level of success, right? It started humbly. So in 2006 to 2011, were you, first of all, do you have any kind of business background, or are you just self-taught on this stuff?
I was a Latin American studies major at the University of Arizona in Tucson, Arizona. So my business background centered about how can I take my money and buy a relatively inexpensive 12-pack of beer so it'll last me over the weekend. So that was about my expertise from a business background.
Important economic considerations. So 2006 and then 2011, Cooper Hurley started. How many cases, just generally, like what did things look like in 2006 when you were kind of getting off the ground here with the firm?
Sure. That when I started as a solo, I had probably about 75 to 100 cases, and they were primarily personal injury cases. But like many people that do personal injury, like you and I, during that time, I also did traffic work and I also did bankruptcy work because I had to pay basic bills and payroll and things like that. So it took me about 2 or 3 years to totally get out of traffic work and bankruptcy work when I built up the personal injury practice to probably about 100 to 125 files, and then the revenue was rolling in on a consistent basis.
How many people in the firm today in total?
We have 9 lawyers and approximately 45 people, and we're continuing to grow.
How many markets are you in Virginia?
I'll let Cassie answer that.
Yeah.
So we're in the Hampton Roads market, and it is the 7 cities. So it's a region made up of 7 cities, and we have an office and or meeting location in each of the cities.
So, all right, Cassidy, you came on board 2017. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I'm just going to throw it out there that you've done a whole lot of, you've grown that firm a lot, right? Jim did a lot, but it sounds like, you needed help. You needed people to come in to help you get to the next level. It sounds like you've been extremely crucial in that journey. What did the firm look like when you stepped foot? Like we just talked about what it looks like today. What did it look like when you came on the bus?
So one thing that both Jim and John had when I came in was an appreciation for marketing. I've worked with a lot of business owners, and a lot of them did not have an appreciation for marketing. So they knew the importance of it. They just needed someone that had the time and the skill set to get it going. And so coming in, it was such an easy transition from where I was prior. Coming in and saying, hey, we need to do X. And they said, well, is it going to work? Yeah, it's going to work. Okay, let's do it. Them giving me the resources that I need. When I say resources, I'm mostly talking about budget.
Sure.
Again, all of those things are the building blocks for a successful marketing department.
Where did you work beforehand? You had some marketing experience, right?
Oh, yeah. My first marketing jobs were in politics. I was campaign managing for a while, did Northwestern Mutual, did Nationwide, and then I decided that I wanted to open up my own marketing firm. And so I had the Lewis Marketing Group for about 4 or 5 years consistently, and I loved it. It's just I wanted to be able to work with one company and to really be able to dive in. And I wanted to know what my money was going to look like every 2 weeks too.
Yeah.
So got connected with Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers. a little over 6 years ago. And we've been rolling ever since, right, Jim?
Exactly, Cassie.
Smart move, Jim, bringing Cassidy on. Smart man. So let me ask you this, Jim, had you ever had anyone in Cassidy's seat before, right? Had you had someone in-house doing the marketing or no?
That what we had before was not a true chief marketing officer. So this was really a first step for us. And probably the one insightful thing I could say to anybody listening to this, regardless of how big you are, or if you're a solo practitioner, or whether you do personal injury or any other type of law, if you're really looking to grow your firm, you got to hire marketing people, in-house marketing people. You know, you have virtual marketing people. I'm a firm believer in in-house as opposed to virtual, but virtual would work as well. And the common theme is, well, I don't have enough money. I don't have enough resources. I don't have enough time. And I get that, but that would be my really one crucial piece of advice. You got to go really all in on marketing if you want to build your business and scale your business and ultimately be what I would consider a success. So before Cassie joined us, we had people that helped with marketing. And then I spent probably about 25 to 30% of my time doing nothing but marketing. And we had reached a point where we were at an impasse. We had to go ahead and hire a chief marketing officer to kind of coordinate everything we were doing in-house and then to coordinate all our outside vendors. And I didn't have the skill set, nor did I have the time to do that. So that was really a pivotal moment in the firm when Cassie agreed to join us as our chief marketing officer.
Yeah, I love that, right? Because if the lawyer is doing the marketing's not going to get done. If it is done, it's done half-assed. So you need to, I would encourage the listener to hire someone like Jim said. You know, Cassidy knows you need to bring in someone to wear the marketing hat, to have ownership, accountability for the marketing. My first marketing assistant was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. She was with me for a short while. She was a college student, but she gave me something that I'm leveraging to the day I retire. And that's my slogan: call early before it's too late. She coined that, right? And that one little thing from that team member years ago, I'm now trademarking that slogan. I'd encourage everyone, you got to get marketing help. If you're serious, if you do PI, you do bankruptcy, criminal, I don't care. If you're trying to grow a firm, you need cases. And you can't get cases when you're in court. You can't get cases when you're writing a brief. So you need to bring in some help. So you need to find your Cassidy, because without that, you're only going to grow so much. So Jim, it seems like there's no question bringing Cassidy on was super helpful. Now, I first met you, Jim, during the pandemic, and I know we had a similar tie to Ben Glass. You were in that world at some point with Ben Glass, right?
Correct. That when I started my own firm in 2006, that's when it dawned on me that I had to figure out how to run a business, and that I have an entrepreneur spirit, but I didn't really call it that back then. I was just like, how can I make my business successful? So I ran into Ben Glass, and I first started with Ben, would have been well over 15 years ago. And that was when he was much smaller, and he's unbelievably successful now, and I'm still involved with Ben, and he does great work. So that's really when I started looking at it from kind of an entrepreneur spirit, a business standpoint, marketing, and actually working on the business as opposed to working in the business.
Right. My whole game changed when I found Ben Glass. And then eventually I found my way to Pilma and Cassidy. I know you're very involved in Pilma. You guys, I believe in their mastermind. I'm in the mastermind. Did you go to Key West a couple weeks ago?
I did.
I just got back last week on Saturday. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Ken's a guy I have a lot of respect for. Ken and Ben have been on this podcast, and those dudes have been really good for me and what I've done. So really grateful to them. But I love what you're doing, Cassidy. You're doing these monthly calls for Pilma, right? I think that's really cool that you are leading this group. It's mostly marketing assistants, I think. I pop on the calls. I don't think there's a lot of lawyers. I think more lawyers should be joining those calls. But could you tell us, if you could just back up, how did that start? Did Ken ask you to do that? Like, how did that come about? Because I think it's wonderful what you're doing each month on that.
Sure. So Pillman has a listserv where it's, mostly attorneys, but I'm on that listserv too, and there are some marketers. This was during the pandemic also. There was a question, I believe, on can someone train my marketer? Another lawyer asked him, I brought in a new marketing director. Could someone train her? And I reached out to Ken because this was the second or third one I'd seen in, let's say, a year. And I told him that I think that the marketers should be able to get together, at some regular cadence, right? Because we need to get into the minutia. Like, we need to get into the details of some of these strategies, because you can have an outstanding strategy. If you don't understand or know the logistics or the shortcuts or the people to talk to, it's going to flop every single time. So he said yes, and then asked me to run the calls. And it's a mix of CMOs, marketing directors, marketing assistants, public relations, attorneys that handle marketing. It's a solid mix. I've had Jim come on a few times just to talk about the CMO and managing partner relationship. Any space where you can be centered around people that know more than you is a good space to be in, right? Absolutely. So I coordinate the call, but there are firms in there that are larger than me. There are CMOs that are more experienced than me. It's a very humbling experience, and I enjoy doing it every month.
I think it's really cool. And I think this is really cool that Jim has a mindset where he knows, and I don't want to speak for you, but I think I understand you well enough to know that you have an abundance mentality, and that when Cassidy is out there talking about some marketing stuff, like, you're benefiting from that, right? There's enough cases where it's not like a scarcity thing, that you're open-minded enough. See, a lot of lawyers aren't thinking like that. I know that. I know you guys know that, but you're cool with Cassidy, sharpening her sword, getting more and more skills as she talks to other people. But there's plenty of cases, and that you're not shy to have Cassidy talking about what you guys are doing. And I think that's cool, because I was at the Miami NTL. I was up on stage telling lawyers how I get cases. I talk about this podcast, and I just think a lot of lawyers are kind of gun shy and like, oh, we can't talk about that. Like, this is my little island, and I don't share what I'm doing. I think it's cool that you guys are thinking on a different level, because that to me is next level thing. I think that's really cool. I just want to talk for a second about something that's very near and dear to my heart. That's grassroots marketing. I believe you guys are also into grassroots, right? So again, I started with the Ben Glass. In that world, direct response, newsletters. Could you tell us about your philosophy, your approach to grassroots? I'd love to hear about that, because I know you guys are proponents of it.
Yeah. Then I'll go first, and then Cassie can answer that in a more comprehensive way and a smarter way in her own mind. When I was working for the large personal injury law firm, I had the benefit of working for a named partner that was a mentor of mine. And this would have been back in the 1990s. So, that's back in the yellow pages for any of you ancient people that used to market on the yellow pages. And that he always instilled in me that really the best way you can get business is by people you know, whether it's current clients or past clients or neighbors or associates. But those people have to know that you want their business.
Yes.
And it sounds so simple and it sounds so common sense. But if you really think about it, it's a profound statement.
Yes.
So when I left that firm, I had taken with me probably about 250 to 300 names and addresses of people I had represented. I didn't take any files with me for various reasons, but I did take former clients' names and addresses. So when I embarked after that firm, I right away started contacting them, doing some mailing. And this would have been before I'm getting involved with Ben Glass, because this guy had always said, look, that's how you're going to get some of your best cases. That'll be the best way to build your business. So really, from when I left the firm as a partner that was a pretty successful personal injury firm, what we now refer to as our friend of the firm list, which is everybody we know, past clients, current clients, business contacts. I started building the friend of the firm list. And then when I got involved with Ben Glass, he was a big proponent of that. So I consider that grassroots marketing, people you know. and we touch them in various ways. But I'll let Cassie kind of talk about that a little bit because she's also a firm believer in grassroots marketing.
Yeah, me and Jim are definitely and have always been on the same path. You asked me, what did the marketing look like when I first got here? And I was surprised at the foundation that they had. So at Northwestern, I was the director of marketing. There was no digital. There was no social. We didn't do any of that. You only got clients from referral sources. That sharpened my skills a great amount. That and then my politics background. Doing events. What does that look like? What does it look like talking to this community of people? How do you address them? All of those things have helped a lot. Us now being as large as we are, that friend of the firm, or what's commonly referred to as database marketing, it goes back and forth between our number one and number two referral source every year.
Yeah.
Those people believe in us. They are our ambassadors. All of that. It gets missed a lot, in 2024, because everybody and everything is digital. So the businesses that are still doing it, we're the ones that stand out, even though it's, considered archaic. The ones that are really connecting with their clients, not just with clients, but connecting with the people in their circle, in their community. We're the ones that are standing out now. So I'm a firm believer of it. We love it.
Yeah, I can't agree more. List building, list nurturing. These are just fundamental grassroots principles, right? I know you guys do a newsletter. We do a newsletter. I do an attorney newsletter. I'm pretty obsessed with nurturing my list, growing it. I just spoke to Justia, the website provider. They put on this presentation. They allowed me to have it to myself. I talked about time management. At the end of the presentation, I had a QR code. Hey, scan this code to get on my newsletter list. I got like 20 attorneys on the newsletter. Just by that strategy, I would encourage everyone listening to this. I talk about this every show. I'm always talking about this on LinkedIn. Build your list. Like Jim had to start building his list one day. He said, "Oh, I got to start doing this." And now it's just, how big is your list now, guys? How many people you think are on the list about?
Between 37,000.
How often are you pushing out a newsletter, monthly newsletter, or just print newsletter?
So we will probably do 4 to 5 this year. We've done more in the past. We are doing digital newsletters every month. And then we also have, our, what we call a role mailing list. So we have one for attorneys, one for our motorcycle community, one for our railroad community. So 5 that go out to everybody. And then, another 4 or 5 for each of those communities.
I love that. And Jim was talking about this too. You have to educate people that you won cases. For years, I was thinking, oh no, people know I'm a lawyer. I just got a case yesterday. A guy who lives in my town, he was at a different law firm and he didn't even know that I was a personal injury lawyer. I was like, oh man. So don't assume people know what you do. Don't assume they know you want business. You have to be, you can't be a backseat passenger, right? You got to be super clear what we're doing, the clients we're looking for. I encourage everyone, you could do this for short money. Just get a newsletter off the ground. It could be a postcard. I talked about this yesterday in a presentation, guys. Lawyers are so focused on perfection. Oh, I got to get this blog post perfect, or this newsletter, the font is not quite right. Just send it out. Send that bad boy out. Because if I thought about stuff a lot, nothing would get done. I know you guys are aligned on that. You're not waiting to get things perfect, right? And so I think that's really important. So lawyers, please build out that list. Now, Jim and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. I'm at a point in my business where the grassroots, I'm just leveraging all channels, but now we're playing in a little bit of a deeper game, and that's billboards, radio. When did you guys get into, I believe you're on TV, right? Right
now?
Yeah,
we are.
When did you start playing that game, the mass media, right? Really taking big bets. When did you guys go that way? When did that happen?
All in, we started approximately 4 years ago in regards to TV. But prior to that, I had run some TV campaigns, but limited TV campaigns. So I had some background, some experience, some data numbers. But about 4 years ago, we hired a local ad agency to help run our TV campaign. And in our market, we have two spenders that spend about $1 million a year. And then we have about 3 or 4 that spend about $400,000 to $500,000 a year. So we're on the second tier, the 3 to 4, and we try to be number 3 in our market, but sometimes we're number 4 in our market. So we would have started heavily into TV on a consistent basis about 4 years ago. And overall, it's really helped with our brand awareness. And I'll let Cassie talk about that in a little bit. From a number standpoint, and I tend to be a number guy, and from a dollar standpoint, if you looked at it, you would say, I'm never going to do TV. It's our most expensive cost per lead. It's our most expensive cost per case. Our return on investment is maybe 1.5 to 1. And that was only after about 1.5 to 2 years, because it took it that long to kind of build up. So, but we're in a position where we're big enough and our gross revenue was enough that one of the main focuses is the branding aspect, so they know about us. So I'll let Cassie talk a little bit about the branding.
Yeah. So I've had attorneys or business owners ask, like, when's a good time to make that jump into big media? It really is about where your business is in its life cycle. If you have the grassroots stuff mastered, like you said, if you've done your digital, that's the time when you can start thinking about spending a lot of, because it's a risk. I was, that first year I was sweating. It's definitely a risk. But a lot of marketing is psychology, it's heuristics. So one of the theories that I like about TV is frequency theory. It's a psychology theory. That if I see you in one space, I start to see you everywhere, right? So, you buy your car from a dealership, and now everywhere you drive, you see that dealership's license plates on everybody's car. Well, they didn't, magically become on everyone's license plates, right? You had an interaction with them, and now you see them everywhere. So like Jim said, the ROI is 1 to 1. We break even. We are profitable, but I am a firm believer that it's an accelerator for everything else that we do. Even when I know someone is calling through an LSA or calling through SEO efforts or even a referral, I know that TV helped us get that case for a lot of the cases that we have.
I love that word you just used, accelerator, because that's a really good word to describe what spending a boatload of money does, right? And it's not for the faint of heart. This is it's not playing it safe, right? It's not going small. It's about like taking big bets. So let me ask you this, Cassidy. I'm curious because I love I know we have a mutual friend, Charlie Mann, right? Yeah. And I love that he has a fresh perspective. He's so involved in this industry, but he doesn't wear the lawyer hat, and I love that. I'd love to ask you, where do you think most lawyers are getting tripped up? Like, where do you see a theme with lawyers sort of getting in their own way, perhaps with marketing, or just not really understanding it? Like, what would you tell that lawyer that's just sort of I guess my question is this. What are some common things that you see lawyers not getting when it comes to marketing?
How long do you got, Chris? It is exactly what it is exactly what Jim said.
Mention my name.
This is what I say when people, when I go to these conferences and I'm talking to different attorneys. Lawyers are extremely intelligent, right? And maybe I'm stereotyping, but lawyers are extremely intelligent. What I feel like is a big hurdle is that they often assume that they can be the CMO too. It is
right.
And it's a different skill set. Maybe you're intelligent enough, but do you have the experience, the skill set, the formal training, all of those things, the creativity, the logistics, like all of the pieces that are required, or that make up a good CMO. And then number 2, I'd probably say the patience. So like with TV, when Jim and I were talking about TV, one request that I had, he was on the same page, was we can't do this for a year and say, oh, it flopped. You know what I mean? this is something that we got to see out for 2 to 3 years to figure out if it's going to work for us. So, and it's scary, and it's easy for me to say that because it's not my money on the line, right? My paycheck comes in every 2 weeks. So I can understand it, but I really think that more attorneys need more patience when it comes to seeing the results or seeing ROI when it comes into marketing. But those are my two easily. Hire a marketer and find some patience for your marketing.
You know, I love that. I think patience is so important. I've only become sensitive, or I've only become sensitive enough to patience recently, actually, because I've always been like, I've done such stupid things. I've run a radio ad for a month. It didn't get case, so I pulled the ad. Like, what the hell was I thinking? So here's the problem, though, and you guys both, you know, can relate to this. How long do you let it ride until it's shown not to be a winner? It's like and it depends on the medium. It depends on what we're rolling with here. But like that to me is a challenge. It's like, when do you hit the brake? When do you pump the gas? When do you hit the brakes? That's a challenge because we're talking about a lot of dough spent, right? But I think success leaves clues. And so if you look, you know, there's a reason why John Morgan is spending a boatload of money on TV because it works. There's a reason why Alexander Shannara, you know, in the South is all over the billboards because it works, right? Do you guys ever see that where it's tough to decide, like, do we stay with this? Do we jump ship, right? Do we pull the plug? I feel like that's a big challenge for me. What do you guys think?
Okay, I'll answer first. So before you can assess ROI, you need to assess what you want your return to be, right? Mm-hmm. I spend 50, 60,000 on social media every year at minimum, right? I have zero anticipation of getting a client out of social media or that they would say that they hired us from social media. However, that is a part of our grassroots marketing campaign where people, the Hampton Roads community gets to meet Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers. It's where we talk about our community. We don't even talk a lot of legal pieces on social media. So I think the first step is understanding what your return is. Is your return going to be social media followers? Is it going to be branding? Even with TV, I did not have high hopes for getting a lot of clients out of TV. I said, this is branding. This is not direct response. And we went back and forth internally. This is branding. This is to get our name out there. So I think what can trip people up is not truly understanding what the return is. The return every time is not going to be a case. And that's a hard truth, right? Like that's hard to digest because, well, what the heck am I spending money for? But, so, you know, again, the time could be, you know, the bigger the investment, I would say, the longer you would have to wait. But I think my biggest note to that is make sure that you understand what your return should be. Those are my thoughts. Jim, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll give an example that the lawyers never answer the question. So I always try to answer the question. For us, the magic spot's about 4 months. We'll run something for about 4 months. And at the end of the 4 months, we should have a pretty good idea about whether that campaign's working or not from a dollar sense, but in regards to what's come in, what activity we've had. So we find 4 months is a pretty good time. That an example of that would be Craig Goldenfarb, who I know you're friends with and recently had on the show. We had sent some people down to his 7-figure summit, which I believe is going to be in Boston this year in your neck of the woods. And I would encourage everybody.
That's right.
To go to Craig Goldenfarb's summit, along with John Fisher and Mastermind, who's tremendous as well. Absolutely. So that the last year was in Atlanta, and we came back with Crash Cam. And Crash Cam, the theory is on the interstate, you get a camera, they save it, you get it. It was all very, very appealing. So we went ahead and purchased that for Virginia. And we thought that would be unbelievably productive and unbelievably good. So we ran a whole TV campaign on Crash Cam, and we did it for 4 months. So this would have been last year, September, October, November, and December. And that, interestingly enough, that it did not work. And we think for various reasons, but it obviously did not work. So as of January 1st, we essentially said no more TV ads for Crash Cam, and we went back to another concept that we're now testing now. so that it didn't work. And, you know, the lesson is I would love to tell everybody out there listening to this, hey, there's a magic pill out there that will make your law firm unbelievably successful and your marketing dollar will be spent unbelievably well. But, you know, at the end of the day, you're going to make mistakes and you're going to spend money you wish you hadn't spent on marketing. But so much of marketing is trying new things and not being successful and learning from them and then trying to build on that. And you just have to realize that marketing is more of an art than a science. And you're sometimes going to make some decisions that in retrospect were not your best decisions.
Yeah, I love that. And I like that you aren't afraid to take a haircut sometimes and try something else, because a lot of lawyers play scared and they're freaked out. They're writing big checks. They don't have the stomach for it, and that's okay, right? But I like how you're taking these bets, right? And you're playing the long game. More times than not, you're gonna, because you've been doing this for a little while, so you know that you're gonna win, you're gonna lose, but over time you're gonna win. You said just a little while ago, Jim, you're a numbers guy, right? I am too. Because you've done a lot of numbers analysis, I would imagine, through the years to get your firm to where it is now. What does being a numbers guy mean to you? Do you have daily habits? Like, what does that mean to the attorney who really may not be looking at numbers as much as you are?
Sure. And then I'll let Cassie answer it from a marketing perspective. But we call them KPIs, commonly referred as key performance indicators. And that the ones I try to look on at a regular basis is, number one, the money aspect. Because at the end of the day, to run a firm, you have to have the money. You have to meet payroll. You have to pay rent. You have to pay marketing. So I'll look at the revenue numbers on a weekly basis pretty closely. So that's one of the KPIs I pay a lot of attention to. The other set of KPIs I pay a lot of attention to is the number of cases coming in, what number of intakes, which are new phone calls. We call them intakes here at Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers. The number of intakes, how they're coming in. And then we also classify cases as A, B, C, D cases. A case is $100,000 gross value, B 50 to 100, C 20 to 50, and D's are 20 and below. So I get a feel for not only what we have currently coming in, but what we'll have in the following year and the following year. And Mike Morse, who I know you've had on the show out of Detroit, he's also a fellow University of Arizona graduate. But I read his book, Fireproof, which is a great book. And he really talked about being able to anticipate your revenue. So I'm trying to do that more. Or historically, I was just worried about what's coming in today or what's coming in this month. So as we've grown and gotten better in some ways, I'm trying to anticipate what's coming in next year and the year after that. So those are some of my really key KPIs. And I'll turn it over to Cassie because her marketing KPIs are a little different flavor.
Yeah, we track a lot of numbers. I need to track the big numbers that Jim is tracking, like intakes that we want, open cases. Sometimes my peers in the industry, we don't get involved in the business aspect enough, and it hinders us from truly understanding how our craft impacts a business. So I pay a lot of attention to that. Things that are extremely important to us that lead to getting cases, right? So how many reviews did we get? What's our web traffic, but what's our organic traffic? And then what is our conversion rate? Very few people know what their conversion rates are on their websites. I have what we call money pages. What are our money pages outside of the homepage and contact us page, and why? So one thing that I believe about KPIs is that they're very, very fluid. I am measuring what's important right now. If my team gets into a habit of something where it no longer needs to be measured, it might fall off the KPI list. Or if we've changed directions within a campaign, we need to measure something else, then that KPI gets replaced. We're big believers of what gets measured gets managed. And so, but we track a fair amount of things going on with within our campaign.
I love it. So a couple lessons there.
Chris, if I could on a KPI, that this is actually an example that is interesting in many ways. that I mentioned our D cases. So we'll track the revenue that comes in from each type of case, an A case, a B case, a C case, and a D case. And then we'll track how much that case as a whole cost the firm, both in marketing dollars and in operating. So interestingly enough, a few years ago, when we're trying to get better, we're always trying to get better. We're always trying to improve. But a few years ago, we realized that the cost of a D case, or the little cases, we spent more money than we were getting back in. And
you're losing money. Yeah.
And as a lawyer, you're thinking, I want more, I want more, I want more, I want more cases and more cases. So in the last few years, we've actually started referring out the smaller cases to other lawyers that are a little bit smaller than we are, but they're thankful to get them. And then we get a referral fee, so we're thankful to get that. And the reason we kind of decided that was based on reviewing the KPIs from the smaller cases. So, and we're still struggling with how best to do that, but that's just an example how KPI can actually help you make some decisions in moving your firm forward.
I cannot agree anymore. Just to unpack a couple of things you guys just said, because that was a lot of knowledge you just dropped in that span. So for the newer lawyer or someone who is, hung a shingle and isn't as, up to the level of Cooper Hurley, right? Because it took you guys years and years and years and blood, sweat, and tears to get to that level. I would encourage you, right? Grade your cases. What Jim said, grade your cases. You must. We do the same thing, guys. A, B, C, D. That's a game changer. You guys are both talking about KPIs. You got to figure out your KPIs. You're not just writing checks with marketing. You're not just throwing things in the wind, hoping it goes somewhere. Like you're very measured and sober in your approach. You make business decisions based on data. I think that's really important. And then finally, another lesson for the listener is, you got to be careful. Those D cases, yes, you're losing money. Refer them out. But you must take the time or pay someone to put in the time to make spreadsheets, data, so you can see. Because I'm telling you, I looked at our data. The D cases were like 10% of the revenue maybe 13% of the revenue of the firm. We're losing money. So what are we doing now? Doing the same thing as you, referring them out. Because, we lawyers think, oh, we want more cases. No, we want good cases. That's what Mike Morse does, right? They refer out a lot of cases, and they only sign up so many because they find the gems and they work up those gems. Another takeaway, 80-20 rule. I know you guys are, heavily involved in that as well. 80-20, right? I talk about this all the time. You can't 80-20 your inventory unless you're grading cases and you have data. The 20% of your 20% of your cases would bring in 80% of the revenue. 80% of your cases would bring in 20% of the revenue, right? That's busy versus productive work, but a lot of lawyers aren't really, sensitive to that. I would encourage you, the listener, do what Cooper Hurley is doing. They've, again, I hate to say it again, success leaves clues. These guys are getting after it. They've taken their lumps, but they've succeeded, right? So learn from them, and because they're obviously doing this at a high level. I'm always curious on, just switching gears for a second, how a firm scales, right? If you could tell us, Jim, Cassidy, were there a few things looking back that you guys did? Because it's always a million things. Everyone's looking for the magic bullet. Hey, Cassidy, how can I get more cases? Hey, Jim, how do I develop, KPIs, or how do I hire? Whatever it is. Are there a few things you guys have done that stick out that have contributed to the growth? Are there a few things that stand out to you guys through the years?
I'll go ahead and take a first swing at that. I would say one thing is hiring good people.
Oh, yeah.
Our firm is, all firms are structured differently. One of my famous sayings is all families are dysfunctional, and our work family is dysfunctional as well. But, all firms are structured differently. So we have 2 older partners and we have 3 younger partners. So our structure is, and then associates. So that I think one of the things that made a huge difference was at one point, John, Cooper, and myself decided we wanted to grow the firm. So we had to really look for quality people to grow the firm. And Cassie being one of those, I mentioned the 3 partners, but Cassie would be a quality person as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be a lawyer. And the scary thing was we had to pay salaries and immediate expenses before we got any revenue in. But that was kind of a pivotal moment. We decided we were going to go ahead and do that. It was less money in our pocket initially, but over the long term, that's proved to be unbelievably beneficial for the growth and the success of the firm. I mentioned the 3 partners. Cassie's been part of that. We have a vice president of operations and our firm administrator that's also been part of that. And they're part of our leadership team, which is helpful. So I think that would be one thing. I think the second thing is just doing it every day. I mean, it's just hard. It's hard to do it every day. You know, sometimes you're frustrated, you're mad, you're not in a good mood. You go home, you're not in a good mood, and I don't want to do this anymore, and this is getting to be too much, and I can't stand all these people. So, you know, with growth, people say growth, that's great, but growth has its issues. Chris, I know you're experiencing that probably to a certain extent as you grow your firm.
Sure.
But I think that one of the things is just doing it every day. You know, coming in every day. I don't mean literally, obviously, but coming in every day, trying to move the ball forward. Some days it'll be moving the ball backward, but just doing it every day, every week, every month. And, you know, so much of success is really a small, slow progression that you can't really see right away. But I think that's been a really common thread, and everyone at the firm, I think, tries to do that. So those would be my big 2. I'll let Cassie take over for me now.
I think I have a unique perspective because we're in this middle management position, right? Where I have 2 people that report to me, but also report to Jim. I think him being intentional has been so important. So I guess that would be him saying, coming in and doing it every day. He's very intentional about growing the firm. And that shows up in different ways. So like putting together the leadership team, right? Having people around him where he says, look, I don't know it all, nor can I do it all. I need you all to help me. We are a part of the EOS system. We talked about it on and off before, but, you know, saying, hey, we are going to do this. We have no idea if this is going to work. And sitting in with 4 other people every Tuesday for 90 minutes is difficult. It is. Yes. You have stuff to do, all of it, but being very, very intentional about Jim saying, I'm going to grow this firm. I think also for Jim, or for any managing partner or leader, I would encourage them to get rid of the things that someone else can do. Mm-hmm. Jim has been slowly but surely focusing more of his time of running the firm. And that's where we need his brain. That's where we need his brilliant mind. Jim, do not go around the office telling everybody I called you brilliant. But that's I'm gonna regret that.
Oh man, I love it.
But that's where we need his mind. We need his mind dedicated to that, not D cases, right? We need his mind dedicated to running the firm. So I think that intentionality piece and the time piece are really, really important.
I love it. You know what I love is the energy here, because you guys are just so complimentary, and that's, I feel like, is a reflection of the firm, right? There's a reason why you're up to 45 people, I think you said, right? That wasn't some freak accident. That was a lot of intention, as you just said, right? A lot of design, a lot of, hey, you know, sometimes you guys swing and miss, but you keep swinging. The daily habits, Jim, right? And Cassidy coming in with a fresh set of eyes, you know, 5, 6, 7 years ago and saying, hey, you know what? Let's try this. And Jim, it sounds like, was like, okay. And he let you run and do your thing. Let me ask you this, Cassidy. I get this question asked a lot. How can the practitioner listening to this, he doesn't have a marketing assistant. He understands, he gets, okay, I got to get a marketing assistant. Where should I go about it? I don't have a lot of money right now. I'm just trying to grow my firm. How can I accept that I need a marketing assistant. How should I go about finding that person? How do I get my Cassidy and my firm?
Sure. So you can look at this a few different ways. I agree with Jim that having somebody in-house is the best thing you can do. A marketer excels much quicker if they understand the culture of your firm and understand you as an attorney. So if hiring somebody at a certain level, but only for 20 hours a week, because that's what you can afford, that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. One thing that I tell attorneys is that look locally for a person that owns their own marketing firm. We get tired of sending and chasing invoices we get tired of taxes and the business side. Some of us just want to market. We really genuinely just want to market. And I can name, I mean, off the top of my head, like 8 or 9 outstanding marketers that have the same background as me, had their own marketing agency, was like, you know what? I want to get into the nitty gritty with a business, and started doing legal marketing. So I would say either, like I said, get somebody part-time. You can do colleges, of course. You can do internships, all the things that you know, but I would say part-time, or see if a marketing agency owner is willing to come in and work for you.
That's awesome. I love that. Thank you. That's really helpful. Let me ask you guys this. And you got to spend a buck. To the lawyer listening to this, you got to spend a buck. This is an investment. You know, this is not a cost. This is an investment. TV is not a cost. TV is an investment. Marketing assistant, investment. To the extent you guys are comfortable sharing, what's your greatest challenge right now as you've hit this level of growth? Because I've read somewhere every time you double, things break. Is there something generally or specifically that's frustrating right now at your level of growth that you're experiencing? Because we're always finding new things, right, that are troubling. Anything that you're seeing right now, is it hiring? What is it? What do you think?
Yeah, my number one, I'll go first because Cassie's answer could be the same. So I want to go first so I get mine out there. We've reached the stage of the growth where we're really having a challenge finding capable people.
Yeah.
And whether that is a lawyer, whether that's a paralegal, whether that's a legal assistant, whether that's a marketing person, whether that's an administrative person, because we're growing, so it's not a matter we need one person. We're at the point where we need 2 or 3 people, and it's hard enough to find one person.
Yeah. So
we're constantly looking for people. And then the other issue is you're going to lose people from time to time for various reasons. So we're at the point now that we're big enough. If we lose someone, we're not big enough where we have someone in-house to fill that role. So we have to go outside to try to fill the role. And that rolls us back 3 to 6 months on that particular team where we lost the person.
Yeah.
So that's our biggest challenge right now. And I think part of it's due to the fact that we are growing. And our vision is by January 1st of 2026 to be $1 million per month or $12 million per year. And that would be approximately 70 to 80 employees. So that's really our biggest challenge right now. We have a core group of people that are phenomenal, Cassidy being one of them. But it's trying to add the people would be the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
He definitely stole my answer. He stole my answer. It's high. I think at the firm right now, our firm is split into 2 groups. We have people that have been there 5 years plus that, we're doubtful they'll go anywhere. Yeah. And then we have people that we just hired and that we believe can be here for a long time. So I'm going to throw training in there too. So it's the hiring piece, but also the training, who trains this person in what capacity, seeing the growth opportunities, and I don't know, Jim, if you're the one that saw her potential, but we took one of our front desk receptionists and made her a litigation legal assistant. And I know that she'll be outstanding. So also, what is that internally? What's that growth track internally? I'm here, I can't become a CMO, but for my team, what does that look like? For the other people in the firm, what does that look like?
Yeah, it seems like you guys are at that spot, or you have been for quite some time, where you walk by someone in the hallway, you're like, who's that person? Well, that's our new paralegal. That's our new, and that's so, okay, cool. That's so funny, but it's awesome too. Things change. I think that's really cool. Let me ask you this as we wrap up. I want to be respectful of your time. You guys have been very generous. I appreciate that. What's the future of the firm, Jim? You kind of talked about that, right? You've reached a certain level of success, right? You mentioned, going to a certain number. Are you looking at other states, perhaps? Are you staying in Virginia? Is there a long-term outlook? I'm sure you guys are thinking about this stuff, right?
Yeah, from my standpoint, I mentioned that, by 1/1/26, we'd like to be at $1 million a month or 12 million for the year. And that would be probably right around 70 to 80 employees. That our 10-year goal by 2033 would be 25 million.
Nice.
So obviously that would encompass well over 100 employees. We're really not looking outside of the state of Virginia. I know a lot of law firms have expanded beyond their home state. And interestingly enough, we've had discussion about, we're in the eastern part of Virginia, the coastal area. Mm-hmm. And Richmond is another big area. And then Northern Virginia is another big area. And then out west is another big area. And we've had discussions about perhaps leaving outside of our footprint for some of those areas. But at this point, nothing too serious, because in our area, there's still so much room to grow, and that we're probably one of the top personal injury firms in our area, but we're not the personal injury firm in our area. So that's where we're trying to get to go to. So that's kind of what our immediate focus is.
I love it. That's great. You guys are crushing it. I love this, all this growth, big thinking. I love that. I'd like to ask everyone this as we wrap up. Is there one book, personally or professionally, that's had the biggest impact on your life?
I wrote a book, Cassie, but you don't have to name the book I wrote, Cassie.
I won't. I feel like I'm saying this one because I just finished reading it, but Atomic Habits was a really good one. I finished reading it like a year or two ago. Marketing is additive. Like, you don't take anything away from marketing. Like, it's only additive. And so if you don't personally have good habits, you're going to flop, especially at the level that I'm at with as many initiatives and campaigns as I have. So I'm going to say Atomic Habits. I feel like in an hour, Chris, I'm going to text you, like, you know what? I need to redo it's this book instead.
Of course. You just dropped a good one. Everyone should go buy that book today. It's a great one.
Atomic Habits is a good one.
I guess my answer would be, this is an oldie but a goldie.
Oh, yes.
E-Myth revisited by Michael Gerber, and that it was written well over 20 years ago, and there's been updated editions and everything like that. And that I think to a certain extent, the entrepreneurial operating system is based on part of the book. But that I've read that and I go back and I read it. And what really made it so impressionable by me is that what he refers to as a technician, which would be the lawyer stuff we do. Yeah. And I read that and I go, at the time I was just a lawyer. I was a technician. I had no idea what it was to grow a business. And so that's kind of why I embarked on it. So I've always kind of checked that book out from time to time. And I've always encouraged people to read it. And as I say, it's been updated over and over again. And a lot of the current thinking is based on some of this ideas. But that would probably be my go-to book.
I love it. Well, guys, this has been awesome. I originally, Jim, I found you, I think around the pandemic. You didn't know me and I called you. And you're super kind and generous, because I was like, these guys are getting after. I want to talk to these guys. And I reached out to you. And then I found Cassidy. I've seen Cassidy on the conference trail. So a lot of respect, a lot of admiration. I love what you guys are doing. And I'm a big fan of what you guys are doing. So thank you for coming on the show. Can you guys tell the listener, how can they get in touch with you guys?
Email is always the best for me. I'm Jay Hurley at cooperhurley.com. Hurley's Hurley. Our local number is 757-333-3333. So you can feel free to call. I'm old. I'm going to be 65. So I still talk to people.
Sure. You guys can email me at C as in cat, Lewis, Lewis at cooperhurley.com.
Hey guys, thank you so much. You guys killed it. I loved our conversation. Thank you so very much. All right, that's it for this episode. Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. That's it for this episode of The Earley Show. Be sure to check out more episodes of our show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the Answering Legal YouTube channel.